All right, welcome back to ABA exam review in our RBT exam practice question series where we're going through some questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe for all of our updates. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. As always, when you pass, let us know so we can include you in our Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. A manager of a supermarket is teaching his employee the code to the safe. He starts by entering the first 4 digits of the code and then letting the employee enter the last digit himself. He then only enters 3 digits and the employee enters the other 2. What type of task chain does this resemble? Part of the exam, and most of the exam really, is going to be application of knowledge. And that's why to really get good at this exam and become a good RBT, as you're going through your day, start applying some of these concepts to everyday life. Was that reinforcement? Was that punishment? What's the antecedent? What's the consequence? Because a lot of the questions are going to kind of give you partial information, and you're going to have to just pick what's best. They're not always going to spell out exactly, word by word, step by step, what type of intervention it is. So in this case, it tells you we're looking at some sort of task chain. So what type of task chain does this resemble? Well, we know a manager of a supermarket is teaching the code to the safe. He enters the first 4 digits of the code, and then the employee enters the last digit himself. The manager then only enters 3 digits, and the employee enters the other 2. So what does that remind you of? Are we thinking forward, backwards, or total task? It's not behavior chain interruption strategy because the manager is not interrupting the chain. It isn't total task because with total task, we're teaching the entire chain and focusing on maybe 1, 2, 3 steps that need a little work. We're not doing that here. What we're doing is, or what the manager is doing, is prompting and walking through the employee through the first 4 steps. And on the final step, the employee enters the last digit. And once the last digit is entered, reinforcement is delivered either through locking or unlocking the safe. And that's how backwards chaining works. With backwards chaining, the last step is taught first, and the escape or the completion of the task functions as reinforcement for that last step. With forward chaining, the manager would teach the first digit of the code and then enter the last digits. This is reversed. The manager enters the first 4 digits of the code, and then the employee enters the last digit himself, accessing reinforcement of either opening or closing the safe. So what type of task chain does this resemble? Backwards. They don't give you every single piece to the puzzle, but they give you enough to where when you analyze and critically think about it, you should arrive at backwards chaining. Once his break is over, Jerry will walk back to the table and start working. However, he insists on holding his favorite toy in his hand. If the toy is taken away, Jerry will cry, but continue to work. How would you put crying on extinction? When we think about extinction, what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about withholding reinforcement for a previously reinforced behavior. And when we're identifying what's going to function and what's going to work for extinction, we need to think about the function of the behavior, because the function of the behavior is going to indicate to us how we can put a behavior on extinction. For example, in this case, Jerry goes back to the table, starts to work, but he has his favorite toy in his hand. If that toy is taken away, Jerry cries, but will continue to work. The mistake a lot of people make is, since Jerry's working, people will say, well, he's trying to escape the task. But is he really? Well, no. He's crying because his toy was taken away. The tangible was removed. He's still working. So how are you going to put this behavior on extinction? A, deny access to the toy while crying. Yes, that's why the crying is occurring. You took the toy away, Jerry started to cry. If you want to put the crying on extinction, you've got to refuse or deny access to the toy. Giving the toy would be reinforcement for the crying. B, follow through on the task demand. Well, the function is an escape. Jerry is not attempting to escape work here. So following through on the task demand, one, you don't have to, he's still working. But even if you did, he's not attempting to escape. There's no reinforcement available for escape because he's not attempting to escape. Same thing with C, remove attention when crying is present. Jerry's not seeking attention. The reinforcement here is that tangible. So if we want to withhold reinforcement, we must withhold the tangible. And then D, block sensory stimulation from crying. This is a socially mediated behavior. It isn't automatic. The reason Jerry's crying, the function of the behavior is to obtain a tangible. Therefore, if we want to put it on extinction, we must deny access to that tangible when crying. When using a differential reinforcement of incompatible behavior intervention, what should be taken into consideration regarding the replacement behavior? We've talked about this a few times if you've been a long-time watcher of my videos and the importance of replacement behaviors when we reduce other behaviors. Aside from differential reinforcement of other DRO procedure where we're just reinforcing in the absence, with our DRI and our DRA, we're teaching something to replace the old behavior. And it's important that we teach behaviors that meet the same needs as the old behavior. There's also a couple other things to consider. So, what should we consider when choosing replacement behaviors? A, it should be functionally equivalent to the target behavior. Yes, and what does that mean? Well, it means the replacement behavior is going to serve and meet the same needs as the old behavior. We're taking a behavior away that's serving a purpose. We must add a behavior that meets that same purpose. This should be a B, but it should not be topographically similar to the target behavior. Why is this correct? Why is B correct? Well, because it's an incompatible behavior intervention. And so when we are teaching incompatible behaviors, the new behavior cannot look the same as the old behavior. They can't occur simultaneously and they don't look the same. They're incompatible. C, it should already be in the learner's repertoire. And that's one thing people forget about replacement behaviors. If you're going to teach a replacement behavior, that behavior must already be known. You don't pick a replacement behavior and then teach it in the middle of the intervention. The replacement behavior must already be known in order to be used as a replacement behavior in a differential reinforcement procedure. So, when thinking about replacement behaviors, what do we consider? Well, it's got to be functionally equivalent to the target behavior. It should not be topographically similar in an incompatible behavior intervention, and it should already be in the learner's repertoire. The answer here is D, the above. Mary wants to improve her son's ability to play independently. When alone, he will play for about 10 minutes, but then will start to seek out attention from Mary. Mary is now delivering attention to her son every 8 minutes, no matter what. What is Mary using? Couple giveaways here, okay? First, let's analyze the question. We know Mary wants to improve her son's ability to play independently, but when alone, he plays for about 10 minutes and then seeks attention. So he's seeking attention. The function of the behavior is attention. Mary's going to give attention, so she's going to reinforce the son every 8 minutes on a schedule, no matter what. So when you deliver reinforcement on a schedule, regardless of what behavior is occurring, what do we call that? A, contingent reinforcement. Well, contingent reinforcement is dependent on the behavior. That's an if-then, right? If you do this, then you do this. Contingent reinforcement says a certain behavior must occur in order to get reinforcement. Mary is giving attention regardless of whether a behavior is occurring or not. All she's worried about is 8 minutes passing and then delivering attention. So this is B, non-contingent reinforcement. There is no contingency in place for her son. Her son will get attention 8 minutes no matter what. C, negative reinforcement. Well, she's giving attention, so it's positive. And then D, verbal prompting. Mary is not verbally prompting at any point in the scenario. Mary's using a non-contingent reinforcement procedure in hopes that she will decrease the value of attention and improve her son's ability to play independently. By delivering the attention every 8 minutes, Mary's hoping that the need for attention decreases, and therefore her son can play more consistently and more for a longer duration by himself. So what is Mary using? B, non-contingent reinforcement. Look at the graph below. What is the rate of screaming for session 6? All right, well, if you watched our Monday video, we had the same graph. I like this graph. It's easy to read and it's not intimidating because graphing questions shouldn't be intimidating. This is a line graph. You see all our data points connected by our data path. We have our title, rate of client screaming. The y-axis is our behavior. The x-axis is time. Line graphs all look the same. Once you do a few of them, you'll have it down packed. Won't be an issue. Question says, what is the rate of screaming for session 6. So rate is frequency over time. Well, what is our time? We know our time is on this x-axis. It's 3 hours. So each one of these sessions are 3 hours long. Our rate, we need a frequency. Well, that's going to be our y-axis. So our rate for session 6. Well, we over to our 3, or our y-axis, we have a 3. That's our frequency, right? Our session is 6, which is a 3-hour session. So the behavior is occurring 3 times per 3 hours for session 6. It isn't A 3 times. That's just the frequency. Rate and frequency are different, remember. Rate is frequency plus time. So we need the per, 3 times per hour. Well, we know it happened 3 times over a 3-hour session. So not 3 times per hour, but C, 3 times per 3 hours. So looking at the graph below, what is the rate of screaming for session 6? C, 3 times per 3 hours. Logan is teaching a lesson on conducting business for a media organization. There are 15 people in the lecture, and following the lecture, they are all required to watch a follow-up video. Logan wants to monitor all the participants at once on their attending to the video. What type of measurement would be best? Okay, we have a scenario, a measurement question, and Logan has to measure all these participants at once, so 15 people at once. So when you get this situation where you're measuring many people at once and multiple people at once, almost always you're going to eliminate continuous measurement. It's just too hard to continually measure 15 people at once. So we know we're looking for some interval or time sampling. Now, if we have a group procedure, even a partial interval measurement, you still got to watch everybody for the entire time, right? Because you need to check if they're engaged or not. C, momentary time sampling is better because you can look up at the end of the interval. What's even better, though, is D, the play check, the planned activity check. And the play check is simply just momentary time sampling for a group. At the end of the interval, Logan looks up and he checks all 15 people and sees and observes and monitors and records who is and isn't attending. Play check, planned activity check, is simply a group version of momentary time sampling, which makes it perfect. It's discontinuous, it's a group, and it's momentary, making it the best case scenario for Logan. A family is eating dinner together. The daughter is pushing her peas around her plate with her fork. Her dad says, "Eat your peas," and points at the peas. This is an example of a what? Okay, on a prompting question, always identify your SD first, so you know where the prompt is. The SD is what? Well, the SD is eat your peas. So we know the prompt immediately follows the SD. So SD is eat your peas. Points at peas is our prompt. Well, if we're pointing at the peas, Dad says eat your peas. He points at them. What is he doing? A, modeling. Well, with a modeling prompt, you are doing the behavior. So if Dad says eat your peas, modeling would be eating peas. He doesn't do that. He just points. What he's doing is B, a gestural prompt. He's using pointing and indicating and gestures to show what he intends in this case, the daughter to do. Clearly isn't punishment, right? Because it's not a consequence. And it isn't a verbal prompt. Eat your peas is an SD. The pointing is the prompt. And the pointing is a gesture. So this is an example of a B, gestural prompt. It is important that behavior we target for change is socially valid. The change should be meaningful and impact lives. Whose lives should the behavior change ideally impact? It's kind of a philosophical question. It's more along the lines of a BCBA question, but that's okay because it's an important idea and concept. When we talk about being socially valid, we need behaviors that matter. They make a difference in lives, okay? We don't just change and target every single behavior willy-nilly. The behavior's got to matter. It's got to mean something. And when we change it, whose lives are we trying to affect? Well, A, the client, obviously. That's our most important priority. That's the top priority. What about B, the stakeholders? Sure. Parents and grandparents and teachers and other therapists, people who have an interest in the outcomes of the interventions. We would want their lives to be impacted as well. And what about the client's community, their peers, right? the people in the store, the people at work. Maybe they're not direct stakeholders, but it would be great if we can change our clients' behavior and as a result, improve the client's community's lives as well. So ideally, we would impact the client, the stakeholder, and the community. So really, we would impact, hopefully, D, all the above. Excellent. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you can. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. As usual, let us know when you pass. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.